North Korea.
Sure.
Can you confirm reports that the U.S. is considering putting North Korea back on the terror list as one of the options of retaliation?
Well, as the president outlined in his press conference, we of course reserve the right to use all necessary means, diplomatic, informational, military, and economic as appropriate and as consistent with domestic and international law in order to protect and defend our nation, our allies, and our interests. But we're not going to outline more specifics beyond that at this point in time. North Korea?
Along those same, yeah, just along those same lines, you've seen letters, a letter, I would think, from Senator Menendez on this very issue.
I have
to the
not seen that
Secretary.
letter, no.
Well, he's
To
basically,
to the State Department?
to the Secretary, saying
Okay.
that North Korea should be put back on the state sponsors list because of this hack. And I'm just curious, when the Bush administration delisted North Korea,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't remove any sanctions. The sanctions stayed in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if putting them back on the list would have any practical punitive effect. Can
I don't
you-
have that information in front of me. I'm happy to talk to our team and see if, broadly speaking, there are more specifics we can offer.
All right, and the other thing, does the State Department, or does the Secretary agree with the President's assessment that Sony made a mistake in pulling this film?
He does. Certainly, he believes that freedom of speech and expression is something that we should support broadly, and certainly agrees with the President's assessment.
And given the fact that this happened this happened here in the United States, is there concern in this building about what the move, the precedent that the move that Sony made, but that precedent might set in countries, in other countries around the world, the self-censorship?
Well, I think the way we view it is that the United States government will continue to make every effort to set the example that we're not going to be in the crouch or the fear position when it comes to threats from North Korea. We believe that freedom of speech and expression should be upheld across the board. Obviously, individual companies make their own decisions, but we believe that those values should be respected, and we'll continue to set that precedent.
Okay, and then just to put the final dot on this, to get it out, did Danny Russell, Bob King, or anyone else in the department, to your knowledge, see this movie, screen it before in the time frame that the reports that say that they did have suggested?
To the best of our knowledge, no one from the State Department viewed the movie.
Can you say specifically that the two people who were mentioned in these reports, Mr. Russell,
Did not
and
view the movie? Yes, neither of them viewed the movie.
neither of them viewed the movie? Do you know why Sony, these emails that were that these stories were drawn from, might have come to the conclusion that, I mean, was there some kind of misunderstanding?
Well, there
Was
seemed to be two different accounts, Matt. One was, well, given it's two individuals, right?
Right.
One was that Assistant Secretary Russell had been in contact with Sony executives. He had been. That's certainly part of normal process here about what's happening in the world. He certainly is an expert on issues related to Asia. Secondarily, there were reports of a secondary conversation being passed on from Bob King. That wasn't direct contact with Sony. I don't have any confirmation of the details of the secondary account.
Well, okay, well then, in the primary account of Assistant Secretary Russell's, was there anything in the exchange that he had with the Sony executives that could have been misinterpreted by the Sony or misinterpreted by them to say that he had seen it? Like, did he get a copy of the script, a plot synopsis, anything about the content of the film?
I'm not going to go into more details about their conversation, Matt, but obviously the Assistant Secretary Russell talks about a range of issues as related to Asia with a range of private sector officials. He didn't sign off on a movie, didn't sign off on content. We don't do that. So I'm not sure that piece could be misconstrued.
Okay, so he did, so in addition to not having seen the film, he did not read a synopsis or a script or get any kind of, plot breakdown.
I don't have more details, Matt, but he had a broad conversation with executives, which is par for the course and something we do regularly. Go ahead. Well, let's finish North Korea.
I was going to ask the same question about the relisting, and what I want to know is, tell us a little bit about the process. How long would it take if they were to be relisted?
Well, I'm not going to get into a hypothetical. Obviously, we're going
I
through.
mean, not commenting on whether they will be or they won't be. What is the process for relisting a country? How
I'm
long
sure
does
that's
it take?
information that's publicly available, Indira, and we can pull it up for you and provide it to other people in the bullpen as well.
Did the Japanese government consulted the U.S. government with regards to the putting the movie after the terror, after the terror threat? Did the Japanese government ask U.S. government something about that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question one more time?
Did the Japanese government consulted with the U.S. government with regard to putting the movie, after the terror threat? Because there's an abduction issue. So, did Japanese government ask or talk to some U.S. official?
I don't have any details on that. Go ahead.
I was going to ask a similar question. Did you consult with them or with any like South Koreans, Russians, or Chinas about this issue?
About the movie?
About the movie, right?
I'm not aware of those conversations taking place.
President Obama mentioned that the Sony Pictures decision is mistake. Could you share his idea, his intention with us? What does it mean is a mistake? Then what the Sony Pictures should do in this context?
I'm going to let the president's words speak for themselves. I think I already just answered a question to Matt about our belief that freedom of speech and expression is a value that everyone should uphold. Go ahead.
The president, in his news conference, said there is no indication that another country was acting along with North Korea on this threat. Do you have information indicating whether or not that portion of the investigation has closed, or is it still open, and is there a possibility that investigators are considering whether there might have been additional involvement?
Well, I would point you to the FBI for that question. I think the president spoke to that because obviously and it's almost disproving a negative, which I'm not going to do from the podium. We don't have evidence, as the president said, of other countries' involvements, and if there is a question about whether there's more to the investigation, I'd point you to the FBI.
Sorry, I don't know if you already addressed this or not,
Sure.
but the president said, that he wishes that Sony had, asked him first about this. I'm curious as to how that comports with previous administration statements of, the government not taking any role in this at all. The president clearly wishes that the government had taken a stronger role.
I don't think that's exactly what he said, Elliot. I think
He says he wishes that Sony had talked to him first.
I'm not going to parse the president's words. I think he made clear that his view is that they made a mistake in pulling the movie down. That's a different question than what you're asking. We are not involved in signing off in the content of movies. We're not in the business of that. But we believe that freedom of speech and expression is something that everybody should not just have as a value, but should be acting on. And I think that's what he was expressing through his views.
Does the president or does the administration then believe that the Sony decision was antithetical to freedom of speech and expression?
I think we'll leave it at what I've already said and the president's already said.